Hey everybody, it's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about the brand new Meze Audio 99 Classics V2. This is a new and improved version of the legendary 99 Classics that has honestly been quite popular in the industry, so it's pretty exciting when a new version of that comes out. Just like the 99 Classics, the new V2 has a retail price of $350, and it's still very efficient and easy to drive. It uses 40mm dynamic drivers, and it's a closed back just like the old one. Now, this was sent to me for review by Meze Audio. It won't affect what I say about it. I'm not getting paid for this in any way. I just want to disclose where this came from. I will have generic purchase links in the description below, as well as an affiliate link if you want to support the channel, but feel free to use any link you want. I don't do it for that. I just like talking about this stuff. The box changed. This is the older 99 Classics V1, which looks a little bit more elaborate. You can see a different design. It has this nice little, flip out door and cover, if you will. This guy is a little bit more basic, but part of the reason behind this is they went with recyclable materials. So you can easily discard this box if you want to later, and it's just better for the environment. Take that for what you will. But I will say that on the inside, you still get that wonderful Meze Audio case included in the price. There are some special accessories with the V2 that make it kind of unique. One is Acoustic Discs, which actually changes the tuning. They actually have a modifiable ear cup design to give you two sound signatures, and this is included with all 99 Classic V2s. I'll get into the sound quality and what this does later, but as far as the rest of the accessories go, they also upgraded the cable. The original cable on the 99 Classic wasn't bad, but it did look a little bit basic. It was just kind of on the par for what you'd expect at this price range of $300 to $350, because prices have gone up a little bit thanks to the market and inflation. This new cable is a Kevlar coated OFC cable. Has a little bit more weight to it. It looks and feels noticeably more premium, but anytime you have this material with a little bit more weight to it, because the terminals of the cups point straight down, if you move around a lot, this will have just slightly more microphonics than the old cable. It's not bad on either of them, but it is just slightly louder, so I didn't want to leave that out. Now, it of course comes with a 1/4 inch or 6.3mm adapter. There's no balance cable included in the box. It's single-ended only, but these are so easy to drive. You really need very little power. Like a $15 dongle will get these very comfortable. Thankfully, I'm pleased to say you don't even have to buy a dongle, because one of the other accessories included is a USB-C DAC. I tried this on iOS and Android devices. It works fine. It doesn't work on PlayStation, unfortunately, but it will work on Windows. So if you don't have a headphone jack on the device, there's a good chance that this DAC will do the trick for you, and it just gives you more flexibility. Otherwise, of course, you can stick to the tried and true analog connection, especially if you have a good headphone amp. If you want to see the inside of the case, well, it's pretty straightforward. It's just like the old one. You get this little pouch that all the accessories are bundled inside, and of course a Velcro strap, because the wire is wrapped out of the box for you. You even get a couple nice Meze Audio stickers, which is cool. So the packaging is quite good. Meze Audio has always been good on the packaging and accessories side, and this is no different, even though it's still on the budget side of their product offering. Now, of course, anytime a V2 comes out, I want to talk about the V1 and make some comparisons, because some people have a V1, or the original 99 Classics, and they love it so much, and you want to find out what's different. And if you aren't familiar with this lineup, I think this will still help explain it. So you still get a spring steel headband, and these are gold-plated zinc alloy. So it's not obviously 24 karat gold, but it is a very nice look, and you still get CNC milled walnut cups. This is real walnut, and frankly, it's just a very comfortable design. You get some articulation in the cups, just like the old one. That's not any different. One thing that is unique with the new one is you have a bass port now, because I did mention the tuning was different. It's a really clever way to kind of hide the tuning without making it look too busy. But if you pay really close attention, you will notice something else. The ear cups are a little bit larger. So I have a digital caliper. I honestly didn't want to try this in advance because I'm always scared to use this digital caliper, and it has really sharp, pointy corners. But I want to see if I can capture the width of the old one. And I'm going to just do this very carefully because I like my stuff and I don't want to damage it. 78mm on the width of that, if you could see it on the screen there. And then if I go to the height, well, I'm getting close to maxing out my caliper here. Let's see, 93mm on that. So when we look at the new one, I'm going to try to get the height if it'll extend. And we are all the way up to, as close as I can get it, 98mm on the height. So the terminals, or the cups, are definitely physically taller, and then on the width side it's 84mm wider. The cups are bigger, and I was hoping the interior dimensions would be larger. The pads are noticeably bigger and a little bit more plush, but the end result of the pad dimensions is still almost the same, just because It's physically larger on the outside. You have more surface area, which is more comfortable. I do like the pad improvement, but you're not getting a lot more volume on the inside of the cup for your ear. One of the only downsides of a symmetrical design like this is there's no angled baffle. So the ear clearance is the same front to back. And in this case, it's 20 millimeters. So if you have larger ears that protrude out, just know that there's a good chance it's going to touch the baffle. Now there's a gray area here because I measured them both at 20 millimeters before I touched the baffle. However, this has an acoustic foam installed whether you add these discs or not. And that has a little bit of compression of about 2 additional millimeters. So technically you could say it's 22, but those last 2 millimeters are your ears pressing against a cushion. The other little change that might not be immediately apparent is the terminal size is slightly bigger on the new 99 Classic V2 because this is the new cable. And as you can see, it was plugged in. It should work because it comes with the headphone, right? Well, it does not work on the older 99 Classic because the terminals were really tight. You always had to make sure you purchased special cables that were Meze audio compatible for ones like this where the terminals recessed. So it's nice that it's larger. This does fit more plugs, but it won't fit all of the plugs out there, so you still have to be aware of that. This is still a welcome addition either way. Personally, I would have preferred it to be out a little further so you can really just use any plug you want. But the cable that's included is quite nice, and there are aftermarket ones that will still fit. Before I move on from the pads, I do want to show you these again. These are the acoustic discs I talked about, and you can easily remove these pads. They just clip on. It's a 6-point clip, and it exposes that wonderful baffle design. And I'm going to remove the pads on the older one, just so you can see the difference, because it is a quite different design. You can see it's covered here. There's like a little cloth that's built in. The structure is physically smaller, and this has a traditional like rubber gasket, if you will, that mounts around it. It's like a rubber ring. So the snap-on system is really nice, and look how much more open that driver looks. There's a lot of changes here on the tuning side. So if you want to install these, all you have to do is remove the pad that exposes this opening here. I'm trying to bend the headphone to, I guess, better show it on the camera. And then all I have to do is just line this up as best I can so it's basically centered, and then carefully find the alignment point for your pads. Find that little spot, press it back on, and it's that simple. I'm already done. It does push this out further. I just added 3 millimeters of padding. That's how thick these acoustic pads are. So it will change the tuning. I'll get into that later, but from a comfort side, I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, my ears don't stick out too far, but I immediately press against the baffle here. And as a result, I do prefer to use it without the extra acoustic disc, just because I like to have as much ear clearance as possible. It's not uncomfortable because it's 5 millimeters of padding, because it's this plus the stock 2. It's just the fact that my ears are touching it in the first place. It's going to be different sensations and different preferences for everyone out there, but I just want to point that out. Now the rest of the comfort, the noise isolation is fantastic. It uses a leatherette or vegan leather here, and it has a self-adjusting strap. There's nothing really to worry about in terms of a durability standpoint, because these have always been known to be a very reliable, well-made headphone, and there's no changes here. It still feels just as good as before. It's basically the exact same headband design. It still just says 99 Classics. There's no V2 on the headband or anything. The difference is all in the cup, and the larger mass still feels great, and I still get great isolation. It's a leatherette pad, which is good for the seal and the bass delivery and all of that, but just keep in mind if you're in a really hot climate, leatherette pads aren't as breathable, so your mileage may vary on comfort there, but overall it's a good design from a weight distribution standpoint. Because the headphone's really light, this is still under 300 grams, even with spring steel and real wood cups. This is only 260 grams. This is still like, I think, 290-ish, so pretty good overall for comfort. Clamp force is slightly higher on this one over the older V1, but I think it's partly due to the increased weight of the actual cups and some variance with the spring steel band. I did not modify the tension of this because I have some big announcements soon when it comes to objective measurement on clamp force. I have my own 3D printed rig to measure clamp force. That's why I'm able to provide comparative numbers. But I've been working with Capra Audio on releasing something very exciting soon that is going to be sold to the public. And we're going to form a really good open source clamp force database. So that's very exciting, but that's why I don't want to modify this headband to personal preference. One advantage I want to call out with this is because it's a spring steel headband, you can easily do this if you want a softer clamp, and if you're very careful, you can technically bend it in more. Obviously, I'm not going to chance that now, and that will give you a little bit more pressure in case you're seeking the maximum seal you can, especially for down here where sometimes a close back like this with a shallow pad, it can break a seal right here, which will affect bass. So the comfort is great. The build quality is obviously great. Meze is known for this, but I do want to call out one thing because I will be making comparisons to other manufacturers and models soon in the audio section. One thing that Meze always gets right, and this is no different, is the hand feel and the overall like luxury experience. It's not just looks, it's picking it up, and the way this is contoured to feel in your hand, it does not feel like the headphone is fighting to be held. Some headphones are just really awkward to handle and you have to be super careful with it. The Sony MDR M1 is nice from an all plastic build because it's not going to damage my desk or wherever I place it. This obviously with metal, I guess just be careful, but it doesn't feel as cumbersome as some other models out there. It feels very organic and just pleasant, and I do think that's part of the experience. There's never been a rattle. I've never had a Meze headphone that I opened up and something just jumps out as being a little weird or janky. That even on their least expensive models, it still feels like a super premium product. You are paying a little bit for that, as is the serviceability, because nothing on here is glued or permanent. Everything is replaceable and fixable, which is huge from a long-term ownership perspective as well. So let's get into sound quality and start with the objective measurements first, which takes my opinion out of it. And it's just showing you how my particular measuring rig hears this, which is a KB006X Pinaclone. That may change soon. I'm working on some big announcements there, but in the meantime, if you want to see how this measures compared to other headphones that I've reviewed, I'll have a link in the description below for SquigLink, and you can compare against many others measured the exact same way on the same rig. I take multiple seatings, I move the headphone around, I get an average, and that frequency response is what you get on this graph. So when we look at the frequency response of the new 99 Classics V2, this is quite a departure from the old 99 Classics if you're familiar with that sound. And in some cases, very much in a good way, but it's different. So I don't want to ignore the fact that this is a quite different tune. Just to quickly highlight that, if I add the older 99 Classics, you can see a huge difference on the bass shelf. Now I added this line because I wanted to point out that there is a little bit more roll off on my measurement for now, because if I actually made the clamp increase, I would have gotten a better seal on my measurement rig, and you'd have a little bit more sub bass as a result. I didn't want to tweak or manipulate this in any way until I get the new objective data on clamp force once the new rig is finalized. So do expect a little bit more sub bass than what my measurement is showing, at least for now. However, it is noticeably leaner than the older 99 Classics, which are known to have a lot of bass, and it carries well into 200 hertz and up. So the older one did sound more thick and heavy sounding. If you're a bass head and you're chasing that, so be it, but this is quite more neutral. What is a huge and welcome upgrade to me is the mid-range voicing. The timbre on this is absolutely fantastic. It is much more neutral sounding, and there are pros and cons to this that I'll get into on the subjective side, but purely on the measured side, this gets really close to an ideal measurement in the mid-range. There is a dip here, just under 4,000 hertz. That dip is not just an artifact of my rig. I do hear quite a bit of a recess here on my ears as well. You can always address that with EQ, but thankfully a dip that's rather narrow, even though it's quite large, it doesn't horribly impact the sound quality. It's not causing any extra fatigue or anything. If anything, it can kind of take the edge off of a voice to sound a little bit more pleasing and relaxing. You do still get some of the Meze Audio House sound in the mid and high treble. You can see this lift here. I'm going to get rid of the older 99 Classics just so I can focus on something. This whole peak between 5 and 7K, particularly about 7,500 hertz, it's the strongest peak for me on my ear. This is the most noticeable thing that I have some disagreement with from a personal preference standpoint, but overall this is an excellent sound signature out of the box. There is a rolled off upper treble, just like the older one. It's not anything different there. So that will just come down to your hearing and rig differences, but I wouldn't take too much stock into how this is measuring super high frequencies, because we all have a huge difference there and how we hear that. So I mentioned the acoustic discs do change the sound signature, and if you look at the differences once it's installed, the bass in the mid-range is effectively the same. The big change happens in the mid to high treble. You can see a big recess here where it takes the edge off significantly from 5 to 7,500 hertz, maybe 8,000 hertz, and that wouldn't be so bad by itself. The issue I have is how much it tables off the upper treble, like 10,000 hertz and up. It makes it sound a little bit too dark for my personal preference. This is a relaxing sound signature with the disc on, So if you just want like a downward tilt and a warmer neutral sound, it's still going to be great. I kind of think of this as like having blue light blocking glasses for your computer, like those yellow glasses. It makes everything less contrasty and you're losing some of the detail of the image. In this case, you're losing some of that on the music, but it can be less fatiguing. So it's kind of just think of it as two flavor profiles depending on what you're in the mood for. I just prefer the ones, the sound profile without it, and a little bit of EQ for personal taste. One really important thing I want to call out, because it's rare to have a closeback headphone measure with this much of a consistency and narrow difference between the left and right driver. One of the other improvements that Meze Audio focused on with the V2 is driver matching. It's not like a hand-matched, hand-measured per unit thing, but I know on the manufacturing side, they improved their quality control to better source and match two drivers to each other. This helps a lot with imaging performance. It can help with the perceived soundstage effect. It will affect gaming that I'll talk about later, but my unit measured really well from left and right. So this was a great showing here. Getting into sound quality, there's going to be some interesting takes here, and I really hope I convey my thoughts and feelings on this, because not one of these statements are meant to, I guess, talk negatively about any particular product, including the three here. The older 99 Classics, the original, the non-V2, if you will, had a very colored sound. You could see on the frequency response it had greatly boosted bass, kind of a wonky and recessed mid-range, and then more of a sparkly treble. And it had its own flair, its own colored sound signature. It's a unique flavor of sound. What the V2 does is it strays away from that heavily boosted bass and recessed mids, and I don't want to say fixes it, but it makes it much more neutral. And this opens up a whole different discussion on sound characteristics, personal preferences, etc. And the reason why some people really love this is because it has, I don't want to say flawed in a bad way, but it has a colored sound signature. And what happens is when you have a sound signature this unique and you play the right track with it, it can create magic. And you will hear things and enjoy things that you don't normally hear or enjoy that track the same on other headphones. Coloration can make things sound really fun and enjoyable and fresh. The problem is that same coloration that makes tracks magic can make other tracks tragic. And the boosts and colorations can greatly impact the sound in a negative way. So you have this like roller coaster of enjoyment with tracks on a headphone like this, just to be straight. And when you go with a more neutral sound signature, you lose some of the magic with some of those songs that just hit differently on something like the Classic, but you also lose a lot of the tragic because this isn't greatly coloring and changing the way a song was recorded or I guess meant to be heard. I try to stay away from that because that's kind of a cliche. Don't worry about what other people tell you how something should sound like. Find what you like and how you want your music to sound. It's about you, not other people. So to quickly summarize the differences, because this doesn't have that same coloration, I do lose some of that wow factor sometimes. But if I'm listening to songs for 4 hours instead of 1 or 2 of those really special songs, I can listen to a lot more content without feeling like I need to do much for EQ, and it's not changing the song in a negative way. It might be a little more boring for some people out there if you're chasing something wildly different. You can still get one of these, but I think this is a safer tune. And for me, it's still more agreeable for the variety of genres that I listen to. I don't just listen to EDM or rock, for example. Then you get the FiiO FT1 Pro, which has been a legendary player in the sub $200 space since it came out. It's a closeback with incredible tuning, pretty excited bass. It's definitely elevated. There's more bass on the FT1 Pro than the 99 Classic V2, but the older 99 has more mid-bass presence. It sounds thicker. This sounds a little bit leaner and slammy, but what's interesting is the bass texture and speed of bass is better on the new 99 V2, partly because of the tuning. Obviously, there's different driver differences inside, and the cup geometry plays a lot into how the headphone interacts with your head. The bass on this, while sounding really deep and impactful, it sounds just a little bit slower and a little bit softer, whereas the 99 Classic V2 is a little bit more defined, a little bit faster. The voicing is incredible. It really is so close to the FT1 non-pro, just the closeback. It's very close to the FT1 from a voicing perspective. If anything, it's slightly less forward, just barely relaxed more than this until you get to that treble peak I'll get into in a moment. This just has a little bit more attack on vocals, Not overly so, it's not like shouty or too aggressive, but it just comes across as a little bit more excited sounding in that area. The biggest difference happens in the mid and high treble, because that zing at 7,500 hertz is probably the most noticeable thing about it that you could pick up as having a coloration on what you're listening to. If you are new to my channel, I just want to explain, I am sensitive to 8,000 hertz. Like that peak in particular, I am more sensitive to than most other areas. So when you have a headphone that peaks at 7,500 to 8,000 hertz, it kind of jumps out at me more than I think it may with some other people. So even though I have this criticism on this peak being a little too strong for my personal taste, that's kind of partly also unique to me. You may still have that same experience or not. I don't have that same issue with the FT1. I think overall the general balance of the FT1 is more agreeable for my sound signature preference if I'm not doing EQ. But when you factor in the bass quality that you get with the 99, what Meze brings to the table from a serviceability and chassis design, premiumness, all that, and I do EQ regardless of which headphone I have. So when you factor that in, it doesn't take a lot. I lift the dip at about 3,800 hertz by a few decibels, and I take about 4 or 5 dB off of 7,500 hertz with a narrow Q of like 4. And just doing that one minor tweak completely transforms the headphone to basically being able to listen to everything on it. It sounds great, it sounds really natural, and I still get that vocal mid-range that frankly is a very welcome change on the new V2. And that leads me into gaming, because this still uses dual 3.5mm terminals, which means you can use the Meze mic boom. So for basically under $500, you can get kind of like a flagship audio gaming setup, if you will. This is so efficient and easy to drive. It's easier to drive than even the FT1 Pro. So you can plug this directly into a PlayStation or an Xbox controller and it's still going to get loud, like uncomfortably loud. You don't need anything special. You still have the dongle that's included if you want to plug it into a mobile device or a computer. For console, just use analog to the controller, and you even get a quick volume adjustment and mic mute. And this microphone sounds incredible. I bring up gaming because I mentioned the driver matching earlier as one of the improvements. That really helps with imaging. And this sound signature being a lot less bass boosted and more neutral makes it a surprisingly good headphone for mixed genres of gaming. I've recommended the older 99 Classics for gaming for people who look for like the immersive side of things, where that deep, thick bass and sparkly highs can just be so much fun for open world, chill games at night. It just kind of sucks you into that zone a little bit. This being more neutral, but still having a bass lift and still having somewhat of a warm bass profile, still works great for immersive gaming, but this is much more compliant for FPS gaming as well. So if you want a premium headphone in this space that's a closeback and you want the sound isolation, I think this is going to do an excellent job at all the genres of gaming out there, whether it's a racing game, first-person shooter where it's surprisingly competent in that area, and then you still get that fun sound for all the immersive stuff thanks to a similar treble signature, just a little bit less bass. I don't think this is a massive upgrade over the FT1 purely in gaming, but it does have slightly better noise isolation, so I guess if you have a noisier room, that could help. And you should, in theory, get more consistent driver matching with this particular unit. So imaging performance could be better, but when I went back and forth, I didn't feel like I had this huge competitive edge of one over the other. This is the area of diminishing returns on the audio side. Don't expect to get massive changes in competitiveness if you're purely chasing that. So these are still great options to consider. So while I don't think this sound signature is necessarily going to be for everybody out there, not one sound signature is, I do think this will appeal to a wider variety of listeners, more so than the 99 Classics V1. And when you consider how well received those were and how popular they are, I think it's safe to say we'll have another hit on our hands. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you at the next one. Take care.